This video will demonstrate how to solve a polynomial equation and polynomial inequalities using a graph. So here I have the graph of f of x shown here in blue. Okay? And I'm going to use that to solve the following equation, f of x equals 0. In other words, I want to know when that function is equal to 0, or that translates to when it crosses the x-axis. Alright? And it crosses the x-axis at 4 different points. Remember, whenever we solve an equation, we're looking for an x value that makes it a true mathematical statement. So that is why we're going to report the x values. So I see that f of x is equal to 0 at x equal -4, x equal -2, x equal 3, and x equals 5. Or in other words, at this point, this point, this point, and this point. Okay? Now let's look at the inequalities. When is f of x less than 0? Or, that's just the fancy way of saying below the x-axis. Okay, so when does our blue line fall below the x-axis? Well, it falls below the x-axis here, here, and here. So 3 different intervals. So I'm going to report all 3 of those. Alright, the first one, going from left to right. And remember, I'm going to report the corresponding x values. So it's -infinity, okay, which would be out here, up to -4. Alright. The next time is from -2. Remember, I'm reporting the corresponding x values up to 3. So it's -2 to 3. And the last time is from 5 to infinity. Okay. Finally, I want to know, when is this function greater than or equal to 0, or in other words, above the x-axis. Okay, and I see that that occurs here and here. And now remember, I want to report the corresponding x values, or in other words, these x values here. And now this time I also want to report when it's equal to 0, so I'm going to use my closed brackets. -4 to -2, and here. Okay, 3 to 5. Okay. Alright, and my values where it was below the x-axis was here. Remember, we're reporting the x values. All of these x values and these x values is when it was below. So that is how we use a graph to solve both polynomial equations and inequalities.